Starting transmission. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining this new space that we are creating. Talking about technologies for community networks in this format. My name is Nicholas. I'm part of the Association for Progressive Communications. I'm having some. Oh, sorry. This is my issue. There you go. I am Nicholas, and I was hearing myself in the background in an echo. Sorry about that. We are going to be using this format of lightning talks in order to talk about technologies of community networks. Just a little bit of background of this conversation before we jump into the discussion. This initiative is part of the Association for Progressive Communication and Rhizomaticas Partnership, the project we call LOCNet. It came as part of the interest of the community networks that we work with, the ones that we call peers, that you are, or many of you are here in the session today. That you asked, or you mentioned in several opportunities that you were interested in knowing more about technologies for community networks. Of course, this is something that affects us all, and it is definitely something that we all want to know. But we started thinking about who would be good to talk about these things, and the answer was completely clear for us. It was yourselves, right? Like community networks are the ones that know more about community network technologies. So instead of us trying to gather all of this information and putting it nice for you to have it available, we thought to inaugurate this new space in which we can all share what we have been exploring lately, what new thing has come up ahead in front of us that we are excited about, what potential challenges we might have in relation to the use of technology in the context of community networks, or things that might have gone wrong that we want to share with the rest, so we are sure that doesn't happen to others anymore. In that spirit, this is what the Lightning Talks will be about. So the format is quite simple. Each presenter has 5 minutes to present their presentation. It will be one back to back to the other, so it will be like a stream of presentations, 5 minutes, one after the other. And who comes next will be announced before the current presentation starts. So, for example, right now, Doreen is going to start, and we will have Sarvani present afterwards. So Doreen should be preparing herself because she's now going to present, and after that, Sarvani will present, so she has to be ready to present her content. I would appreciate if those that might not have sent content to me yet to do so we don't have to shift presenter mode to each of you each time that we move. But if you have content that you have not been able to send, we will do it anyways. Having said that, I welcome you all. Oh, one more thing, very important thing actually. After the sessions, we will have 10, 12 presentations, so it's going to be very packed. We will meet at Topia. Topia is this engaging virtual space where we can get together and play around and talk about the topics that we have seen already in the presentation, or any other that we might want to talk about. So please join us in topia.io/2021-LOCNet-convening, and share with us a little bit of your your interests and your questions about the presentation, and engage with the speakers that you have met today. So thank you for that. I'm gonna pass the mic to Doreen. Give me just 1 second that I'm gonna share the screen in order to share your presentation. Doreen, all yours. And Sarvani, please prepare yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Doreen Ohanga from Malawi. I work with the Center for Youth and Development, CYD, and our CN is called Mozanet. So a brief background about Mozanet. It is set up to build on a already existing project, which we run in the northern part of Malawi, where we offer computers to secondary schools. So now that our CN is built to connect those schools on a network. So far we have 4 schools that we have connected in Mzuzu, in the northern part of Malawi. And the main platform that we're using is, we can go on the next slide. Yes, the main platform that we're using is Colibri. So Colibri is an open source education platform giving offline access to openly licensed content library for use of low-income resources. So Colibri is the platform that we use. It's an e-learning platform that learns offline. So that's the one that we use in the schools. We the computers that we offer to schools. It is a sort of like a low maintenance is there that is available. So, and also it supports self-paced learning. So on Colibri, teachers it has different sort of like dashboards. So teachers are able to create accounts and create lessons for the students, assign lessons, assign assignments, and also students are able to access a different type of information on Colibri as well. And it also enables sharing and syncing as well. So our student devices can also be connected to each other and also connected to the teacher's computer. Hence, giving a platform that students can be able to share information and interact with the teachers on the same local area network. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, so a brief background on the education in Malawi right now. So in Malawi, in most local areas, there is a lack of educational resources such as books and teachers as well. At the moment, the student book ratio is one book to 10 of 2 to 15 students, which is pretty high. And also the teacher-student ratio is 1 teacher to 130 students. So giving those numbers is sort of difficult for students to have access to books and be able to utilize them in a sufficient manner. So that is why we opted for Colibri, so that students can be able to access these resources at any given time. So yes, and also Colibri is a platform that enables us to also create our own content and be able to share that content through that platform. That's what mainly part of what we've been doing as well as a project to create content that is of local Malawian curriculum and be able to add it on this Colibri so students can be able to access it. Because Colibri on its own, of course, it comes with different libraries, but it offers very vast information. So I wanted something that is specific, that is something that is straightforward to our Malawian curriculum. That's why we opted to create that content ourselves. So we've been working with teachers around Mzuzu and teachers around the schools that we work with. So to be able to digitize that content, put it in a format, not only digitizing it, but then putting it in a format that is easier to understand. Let's say instead of just text, finding alternate videos for different lessons and be able to compile that information in and uploading it in Colibri. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, so currently we have 18 schools that secondary schools that have at the moment, and area are the ones that are on our CM. And by the end of this year, we plan to extend to have 4 more, to connect 4 more schools, so that they can be able to access this information as well. Yeah, so as I said earlier, we're still working with teachers to make sure that we have content that is of Malawian curriculum, as I said earlier. And this so far has been going well. It was a little bit slowed down with the COVID lockdown. Schools were closed, so we weren't able to get feedback from teachers, because we create that content and send it together with teachers, and teachers are able to practice it with the students, and then they give us feedback that, okay, fine, this is okay, or maybe we need a little bit more of this, or maybe this is not required, things like that. So with the COVID, it was a little bit slowed down, but now that schools are back open, we've been working with teachers to sort of progress this thing that we're doing. Thank you. We can go to the other slide.
Doreen,
yeah, so the challenges that we've had.
Up time, so if you can speed up a little bit, thank you.
Yeah, okay. This is actually my last slide. So the challenge that we've had in using Colibri, mostly the first one has been sort of some teachers have been slow to pick up to integrate this Colibri into their daily lessons, because most teachers are used to using the traditional method of, some teachers have been reluctant. So to encounter that, we have organized a human-centered design workshop where we can discuss on how we can, to find ways on how we can encourage teachers to actually adopt OERs, not just Colibri, but then maybe some other future OERs that we can use. And we work with don't really have personal computers, they rely on computers that we offer in schools. So that also looking at the number of students that we have in schools, there's a lot that sort of present a problem, because we want students to be able to access these materials for a long time. So now it's just many students sharing one computer. But then in our project now, we are able to offer up to 50 computers per school, which is somehow helping, but it's still not enough. And the other thing is computers in schools are mostly restricted to students that are, let's say, taking computers as a subject. So most schools maybe only allow access to the computers to those students that are actually taking computers as a subject. But then we've been working with teachers and encouraging them so that the computer should be open to every student, so that they can be able to access it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doreen. That was quite fast paced. As you can tell, it's a format that requires us to put a lot of rhythm. Now we will have Sarvani. So give me 1 second. I have her presentation here. I need to open it. And as we have Sarvani close, this is the part that should be faster than it is. So sorry for this. So we have Sarvani here, and I'm gonna share her presentation, and we are good to go. So thank you, Sarvani, for being here. Give me 1 second. I share your presentation. Uh, this one, okay. Sorry about that. Share. There you go. All yours, Sarvani.
Yes. Thank you, Nico. And I'm very happy to speak to every one of you here and share my experiences of this project that has been initiated in the beginning of this year. I am Sharbani Belur, the Asia Regional Coordinator for APC, and I'm also associated with the Spoken Tutorial Project at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay. So this project is being worked on together with our manufacturing partner, that is System Level Solutions, SLS India. So this is about localization of technology, exploring the supply chain for Libre routers in India. Next slide, please. So if we go into an understanding that why do we need the localization of Libre routers in India, so the first thing is that to bring down the cost of LRs. So currently, when we order for Libre routers, then we have to pay for the shipping charges, and we also have to pay for the customs duty clearance. And then what happens is that when we bring it to India, then we are unable to use the full potential of the Libre router on the field because the Libre router is not homologated and type approved in India. So there is a need. So even though we get the technology with us, the devices are with us, we are not able to use it to its full potential for which it has been built actually. So the reason, that's one of the reasons. And the other thing is that the rural communities' needs in India is different from the rural communities' needs in other parts of the world. So there needs to be a localization of technology that needs to take place, keeping in mind the rural communities' needs, and develop a base model of Libre router for Asia. So that's something, because now then it becomes easier for countries in Asia like Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, anyone to take this base model of Libre router and then localize it based on the local communities' needs in that country. So that's the thing. The next slide. Now, if you look at the trajectory of technology development that takes place, and I have been dwelling on this problem for a long time now, and I see that what happens is that there is development of technology which doesn't have any community involvement, and whose perspective it is. Is it my perspective or is it the community's perspective? Why that development of technology needs to be done? And whether it is open source or closed source, and is there an ability to scale this technology? These questions are never asked when in the development phase. Now, the next stage is advancement, and as advancement also takes place without taking into account the usage pattern, the challenges that the communities face. Like, for example, is there power availability? Is there a tower over there? Is there bandwidth flowing into the community? Are there access points? So these things are not taken into account. And of course, market pricing and ability to be used with other existing devices. That's also another thing. I mean, if you are doing an advancement of technology, you can't keep replacing all the devices that are there. So it is an ability to be used with other existing devices. And then standardization. So I think standardization becomes a roadblock in technology development, where have we addressed sustainability of the technology when we are standardizing? Are people and communities adopting the technology? I mean, you have wonderful technology that you have developed, you have advanced the technology, but then are people adopting the technology? These questions are never asked. And is there a need for other peripherals, that you need extensions or not? Next slide. So the trajectory of technology development in community networks is foundational technology as a base, diversification based on the needs, and then we go into the localization. So let me tell you about the Libre router project in India. What we did is that the stage one is overall understanding of the project, where we try to understand what are the files that are there, whether what are the gaps over there, something is missing. And then we go into the stage 2, which is ready to deploy 5 Libre routers that will come in. And then we go into the board bring up in the stage 4. And then, of course, the last stage is going to be the mass production of Libre routers, which will be homologated and type approved in India. And this is the sustainable model that we have worked on. And of course, it needs a lot more thinking, a thought process for it. I mean, first is the availability of devices, and then which goes into the usage pattern that if the devices are available, then there will be more usage, and more usage, we will be using the knowledge and then the capacity building. So it's a cyclical process. And how are we going to make the Libre router sustainable in India? Is like, if you talk about it from that, like, more CNs will be seeded to grow, enabling job opportunities for youth in the villages. I don't have the time, so I'm not explaining, but I have the plan in place. Higher demand and usage, manufacturing of the Libre router, and then low cost of devices. So once it is mass manufactured, then there will be the device cost will also go down. The next slide, please. Some points to ponder about. Yeah, so these are some things that we are working on. And the last slide is the synergy between Altermundi and SLS and IIT Bombay. This is a good synergy, which is a diverse synergy, but it is a collaborative effort. It is not just one team's effort, but it is a collaborative effort between Altermundi, SLS, and IIT Bombay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sarvani. Sorry for the lack of time, but it is challenging. I hope everyone. Well, it's good. It's an exercise too, right? Like we are finding our pace in these kind of things. So now we have Shalini with a Solar protocol-based server for Slum Kids art-based learning, and after that we have Sanket with the Raspberry Pi issues in a rural setting. So Shalini, I think you sent me a presentation. Yes, here it is.
Hey, Padmini will give this talk.
Yes, hi.
Oh, Padmini. Okay. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Give me 1 second, Padmini. I'm gonna trigger the presentation, and there you go. It's all yours.
Okay, great. Thanks. Yeah, hi, everyone. So basically, I'm going to talk a little bit about a project that has been arranged by Khoj, which is which supports artists in India to work on innovative projects around technology and art. They have a current program going. And so I'm part of that program. And what I'm going to be exploring is the idea of what we think of as a feminist server, which is a server that is kind of maintained by a community. It is imagined as a commons, but we want to run it in a slum area in Bangalore called Ragigudda. Dinesh and Janastu, who have done a lot of work with EPC in the past, they already have a considerable presence in Ragigudda, so it felt like a good site to do this kind of work. So when I kind of conceived of this project, what I really wanted to do was to get young people to start thinking about data ownership. Who owns their data? Is it possible for them to own their data? Is it possible to intervene in the kind of surveillance mechanisms that are, kind of go hand in hand with the data ownership by corporations and by governments? And so I started exploring the idea of, how do we talk about the digital commons? How do we talk about what it means to own your own server, to own your own data, to maintain your own server? This was inspired by this kind of thinking around feminist servers. And, this quotation here is taken from an essay that deals with this, and I can put the link in the chat later. But I think what is really interesting about this particular quotation is that, a server is a service. It implies work and care, and it is illusory to think that it can always be free or always be there for you, and that the labor in order to maintain a server is something that can be a communal project. So I started thinking, how for, relatively low literacy audiences, how does one translate the idea of owning your data, of, what does it also mean? Like, what does data actually mean? What is data? So how can we move away from this very kind of overdetermined idea of data as something digital, but, kind of move it into the spaces of narratives, histories, information that, communities might hold about themselves. And so I kind of came up with this idea of using the metaphor of a seed bank. So the two images that you can see here are actually of seed banks. Some of you might be familiar with the concept of a seed bank. It's basically a way for indigenous communities to store their seeds. And this obviously is I think it's a kind of a very constructive response against the way that agriculture in many countries, and in India particularly now with the farmers' protests, etc., is becoming completely corporatized and owned by only a few large players. And so what we're trying to do is to kind of use the metaphor of the seed bank to talk about. Oh, cool, thanks for that. So use the metaphor of the seed bank to talk about servers, right? So, seeds themselves, I think of seeds as data as well. They contain information, they contain so much about, the culture of the community that they belong to, the climate, there's so much environmental information within seeds as well. So I felt that it might be a useful way to get people to understand, how can we expand our understandings and our imaginations of data. I think my kind of thinking comes from a kind of data feminist perspective, where this idea of this what has been called big dick data, where when we talk about data, it's always this very kind of big data narrative, and it does not take into account different kinds of data and different ways in which we can think about it. And then I kind of fortuitously stumbled upon Solar Protocol, which is this really interesting project that's run out of New York by some artists, which allows you to host your own server powered by the sun. And that really, resonated beautifully with the seed bank idea. So what we're planning to do, and we're in conversation with Solar Protocol, who've already been really helpful, is to set up a server in this particular neighborhood that will be run by the sun, and then have people in the community create conversations and artistic work around what data means for them and how they might want to express the kind of data that they own in their own contexts and communities. And so what we're really hoping is that artists, so community members who will become artists, will reimagine data, maybe digitally, but also through things like weaving, which is something that a lot of the women in that community do, to kind of, or through music and drumming, which is also, also one of the activities that are undertaken by the younger people in the community. So kind of thinking of data in myriad ways. So, rhythm, beats, all of that can be considered as data. And then just kind of ensuring that the community is aware that they have agency, or they can have agency over their own data. So in that sense, I guess this is also a bit of an activist project, because I think there is this notion, many people feel that they don't have any agency to kind of intervene in things like servers, which seem like very remote and very difficult infrastructural interventions, and kind of understandings of where our data actually lives, who actually owns it, where it goes, how it goes there, is something that most people who are using data every day, all the time, are not really aware. So this is basically an attempt to, through art, through conversation, experiment with things like the Solar Protocol and with different kind of metaphors and analogies to get people to think more about, how they can own their data and kind of be stewards of their own data. And maybe hopefully this can kind of extend into, conversations around decentralized data trusts, and also kind of, hopefully at the end of the project, communities might feel that it is a safe space that is protected by community labor. So it also can bring the community together. So yeah, I'll just stop there, but happy to take any questions later. Thanks.
Thank you. That was quite fast, and that makes me That reminds me of.
Sorry.
No problem. That's good. It's two things. Well, three things. First, thank you for all our interpreters that are doing an amazing job in turning our words into a multilingual streaming. And together with that, I would encourage all our speakers to speak slow, not because you're not being clear, but because sometimes when you translate a phrase, it takes more time than the time that it takes to speak it in your own language. And in a corollary of that would be less is more. So I would encourage you to be more concrete in order for you to be able to be shorter and use the time effectively. So we are, that was an amazing presentation. Thank you. We now have Sanket. Do we have presentation for Sanket? I don't think so.
I shared a blog link. Could you like?
Oh, you shared a blog link. Hold on. Was it through the chat? Yes, I believe so.
Yeah,
So
chat here.
just give me 1 second. I'm gonna find it. You shared it with me, right, Sanket?
Hope so. Are there multiple Nikos? Let me share it to everybody then.
Oh, you shared it on the chat room. Oh, here it is. Okay. I found it. Found it.
Okay.
So give me a second. I'm going to start this presentation now and the sculpting the webinar by. And as Sanket does his presentation, Bruno, please prepare yours about hotspot server. I think you sent me a link, but would be good if you resend it to me, please. All yours, Sanket.
Thanks, Nico. Hi, everyone. Nico, by the way, can you just scroll down to where we can see most of the bullet points? That's enough. That's enough. Yeah. So one of our projects last year was to establish like a similar mesh network that we have been trying near Bangalore, but this time it was in Eastern UP. It was mostly to empower girls there to find spaces in the online world and see how that could uplift them. And Eastern UP, a little background is it's a state in North India and it's very backward. UP itself is backward, and in UP, Eastern UP is pretty backward. So the particular district we were given was Mirzapur, and we were supposed to go there, introduce Raspberry Pis, or basically digital literacy, connect a couple of villages together so that people can talk to each other, girls can exchange ideas, and so on and so forth. But then COVID pandemic hit and we couldn't go there. And so then we thought, like, how do we carry this forward if we cannot physically go there? So then we thought of making these webinar Pis using Raspberry Pi. We'll ship it to them and then we'll be in touch with them regularly. And because most of these people don't have access to computers or laptops, even smartphones, even usually there'll be one smartphone per family, and that'll be like either by father or an elder brother, and only they get access to smartphones. And so here was a choice. We had to choose like what computing device we should give, and we went with Raspberry Pi as against mobile phones or laptops because we felt it is more hackable, customizable. It will give more of an introduction to digital computing rather than smartphones, which is a black box, or a laptop, which is more of a black box. Smartphones, not because it's personal devices. It is a reason why most girl children are not given, because family dynamics. They don't want the girl child to have a personal smartphones. And whereas laptop, we felt like it'll just be a black box. They can't learn beyond just conducting webinars, right? It's not that easy. So then we decided to make this webinar Pi based on these factors. And just then Raspberry Pi 4 was launched, and we were excited because it has higher RAM and to conduct online sessions like Zoom calls and any meets, or even watching a lot of YouTube videos for them. We thought the Raspberry Pi 4 can handle it, but then it opened up its own can of worms for us, and that took a lot of debugging and understanding the Pi 4. And so what the next half of the presentation will be talking about the issues we faced. And so before I get into that, I would like to know like how many of the communities here actively use Raspberry Pis in their projects, and you can message in the chat. And if they have switched over to Raspberry Pi 4, I would like to know like, and what are you using your Raspberry Pi 4 for? Can you scroll down, Nico? To a picture, there's one blue animated picture. I just want to, yeah, this picture. So uh, this was more coming out of like the frustration with Raspberry Pi 4. This whole blog is basically about that, and what all issues we faced. So one was with Raspberry Pi, from Raspberry Pi 3 to Pi 4, it went from USB mini micro USB to C-type USB. Nowadays, most smartphones have it, but then micro USB is more accessible in tier 2 towns. You know, the cables, the accessories. When we are trying to build this system, we wanted to supply only those that will be like available in big cities like Bangalore, but all these small accessories and cables, connectors, we hoped that they could just get it from their local markets. And but now with the switch to micro USB to C-type, C-type cables aren't that accessible. Then we wanted it to be powered using battery packs, and battery packs don't give 5 volts 3 amps, which Raspberry Pi 4 became 5 volts 3 amps minimum it needed compared to Pi 3. And so just the powering of it itself is a sort of a challenge. We had to kind of like make custom battery banks or find out like specialized battery banks that would give 3 amps. It was not very common in the market. Then next issue we faced was we wanted to interface a screen because it's a webinar Pi, right? And but Pi 4 has 2 HDMI ports, and to fit in 2 HDMI ports in a credit card size computer, what they've done is to make it micro HDMI port. And now this micro HDMI connector is not commonly available. And usually HDMI cables for the TVs are usually available in all electronic shops or TV shops in any tier 2, tier 3 towns, but micro USB cables are not available. So micro HDMI cables are not available. So now we have to think of connectors and adapters so that they could then interface it to a screen. And so the way we thought of getting this online is through hotspots, like a SIM card based GSM modems that would provide Wi-Fi, and Raspberry Pi will connect to Wi-Fi, to that particular Wi-Fi, and then we could have webinar sessions. And but then using these HDMI and USB 3, the Raspberry Pi 4 became a very self Wi-Fi jamming device. In the sense that there's a like very known issues about USB 3 and Wi-Fi 2.4 gigahertz creating a lot of interference. And then them accommodating for 2 HDMI ports, they've done something bad in their design, I guess. And our Wi-Fi would not connect to these hotspots Wi-Fi or any other Wi-Fi. It was very difficult. We had to unplug the HDMI ports, HDMI cables, and then the Pi 4 will get connected to Wi-Fi. Then we'd plug the HDMI back in, and then we could access the Wi-Fi. It was such a silly bug, and not much uh, feedback we got on online forums or online spaces. And I guess what ultimately we were just looking for Pi 3 with increased RAM, I guess, is what we would have ideally needed because it has basic connectors, basic things. And so this is like factoring in remote locations, right? So if any of you have shared similar issues with Pi 4 or had any experiences, you could please share it in the chat. It will be comforting to know if others have shared some issues too. Yeah, that's it from us. Yeah.
Thank you, Sanket. So now we have Bruno. Bruno, I can't find your presentation.
No, I don't have a presentation for this.
Oh, no
I
problem.
sent you a link.
Then
just have, can you open this link? I'm going to post it again on the chat so you don't have to scroll up.
please. Obrigado. Give me 1 second.
And I assume I have to speak English because I don't see a... Portuguese to
We have
English.
a Portuguese to English and Portuguese to Spanish translation. So if you want to speak in Portuguese, feel free so. If you want to speak in English, feel free so. And as Bruno gives his presentation, please, Alphonse, get prepared. I already have your presentation.
Okay,
Here it is,
so
all yours.
thanks. I'm gonna be brief, short. I think it's very fortunate that we're coming right after the RESPI issues and sculpting the backlog, because we are facing some similar challenges in this project. The idea is to exactly that to address some of the issues that were presented here before, from the feminist solar server and the RESPI server, because we know that there's a lot of services that could be provided to community networks that are not easy to put them to work simply. So we are working on this project that it's sponsored by the SSB people, the Secure Scuttlebutt Protocol. That our idea was exactly to address some of these issues. Like, for instance, we know that within the LibreMesh, LibreRouter ecosystem, there's something that's missing, which is exactly the hotspot at home, because usually the for not spending much money, the people connect to the network through the Libre routers, but ideally we would have a hotspot in the house and not and leave the Libre routers to just work on the mesh connections and not deal with let's say end user connections. So it would be great to think of a device that would be in the houses that would serve as a hotspot connection point for Wi-Fi, and that could also be providing some services to the users. So and since there's already like a lot of stuff going on the Libre router ecosystems, for instance, we have the Piranha, which is the captive portal, and if we could make these resources more integrated in the sense that, okay, if we have LibreMesh running in the Libre router, it could look for what services are available in the local network within these little hotspot servers, and update the captive portal so that everything would be more easy to configure, or not configure, or at least to require like minimal configuration for whoever's maintaining or using the network. It would be a great advance in what we can provide to the users of the network. But as we just saw, like sometimes we are presented with the RESPI as a magical solution for everything, to that it can do anything, and it's, of course, it's really designed for this kind of urban thinkers, which are not concerned with a weak Wi-Fi signal, or the heat, or many other issues that sometimes we have to face when we were not in a temperate climate with strong Wi-Fi environment. So, but we also believe that there are many providers of this kind of single board computers, which is not just a RESPI. Even not only like we have the previous models of RESPI to try, but many other devices like Banana Pi and bigger boards and such. So the project has these goals. We don't have a public place for updates and so just for now what we can offer is to get in touch with us and follow up on what's going to be developed, because the project is starting right now. But the goal will be that to find out what's the best device for these conditions, and to, in the end, we hope that we can provide some kind of interface like you're looking at it right now. When you just connect to the community network, you can end up in this captive portal that already shows you which apps are available, some information about the community, and does that through a device that makes sense for everyone. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Maybe we can keep continue with the conversation after the lightning talks. Thank you.
Thanks, Bruno. And you have given me the perfect cue to show you something, because Bruno was talking about keeping in touch, and you know that you are always able to follow up with each other through the Community Networks Group Forum. Specifically, this session has its own space in the community, in the forum, where all the presentations are going to be recorded. By the way, thank you, Niels, that is taking note of everything that we are saying. So you will have a brief of what has been said in here, and you will also be able to find each other in order to continue the engagement after the webinar, after the Topia gathering. And also remember that we have the Topia space too. So thank you for that. Now we have Alphonse, and let me find his presentation. Here it is. And I'm gonna share. And it's all yours, Alphonse.
Right. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. My name is Alphonse from Tunapanda, Nairobi. So to me, I think my topic needs to deviate a little bit away from data management and servers. Next slide. Yeah, so as other community networks, our major role is to connect the unconnected, and we always believe in internet is for everyone, and that is what has been pushing us forward. Next slide, please. Yeah, so just maybe a little bit of what TunapandaNet is. TunapandaNet is a community network in Kibera, and it is championed by Tunapanda Institute. Majorly, we operate to bridge the digital divide in the community, and the Kibera community is a slum, which is having a good number of population, but faced with several challenges, things like settlement, health, education. Yeah, so what we normally try to understand is to have the community at heart and work with them in the digital journey. Next slide. So looking at our model, TunapandaNet really consider the learning institutions as the base of everything, because from there, that is where we can connect to the community with a lot of ease. We have teachers, we have students, and through students, we can reach out to the parents and the general community. Then we also consider the community special groups like women groups, youth, and other groups. Then finally, we work with the community-based organizations which are aligned towards serving the community. Next. So in serving the community, we have different services for ourselves. So we have internet as a service, but ideally we agree that internet is not really what matters, but what matters is having a meaningful connectivity. So that would mean that on top of internet, we need to align our services in a way that they benefit the community and also they improve the livelihood of the community. Uh, Through that, we have developed a platform, which is an e-learning platform for the community. And through that, the community is engaged in coming up with the local content, which is hosted again in the same platform and given back to the community. So there is kind of ownership that the community have for their data. And alongside that, we have to make sure that the internet usage is of meaningful to the community. So we engage them in digital literacy awareness training, and we try to champion their talent because we realize that in a community we have diverse talents, and these talents need to be again distributed to generation. So we digitize all these in a platform where everyone can easily get access to. Next, please, please. Yeah, so maybe a question is, what's our big concept? So in real sense, our big concept is just to promote equal digital opportunity for everyone without exclusivity of race or gender or any other thing, but to have a community where people are able to get equal access in terms of digital platform. Next, please. Yeah, so I think this is now what makes the topic of today. What are the tools and technologies that so far we have used and the ones that we are envisioning in using or in exploring? Yeah, so ideally we categorize these tools into two major categories. That is the logical tools, which are referred to tools that can help us to accomplish whatever we are doing. For instance, our colleagues have talked about the Colibri learning platform. Those are tools that are kind of logical and they're helping us like to achieve the mission of our services, like after connectivity, what else? So on top of that, we have an e-learning platform which has been running for around 3 years now, and it has really contributed to the community. Students have been using it more so during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have seen a good number of access to the content that is locally hosted in the platform. But the question comes about now the technical tools. Remember last year, a time like this, in an occasion like this, we presented and we were just having 14 centers connected. But today we talk about over close to 30 centers connected. And the real problem comes when it comes in when we think about managing the network, when it grows. And here is a place where we are looking into exploring new tools and open source that communities can also, other community networks can also replicate and adopt, other than off-the-shelf tools that comes with the device or the vendors. I think this is the right time where community networks can come together, join us in coming up with the network management tools, billing tools, and things to do with the captive portals and hotspot management systems. So this is an area where we are still exploring a lot, and we really seek for any collaboration and support from other CNs so that at least we can have one cross-platform system that can be adopted by anyone. Next. Next
So,
slide.
Alphonse, we are done with time. So please wrap up. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so just the way I've just said, we have some gaps, and the gaps are what are these efficient monitoring tools that exist today? And looking at the current device penetration in Kibera, we find that 50% of the connected population is still are using mobile phones. That means that we need to look into platforms that are geared towards mobile applications. Thank you very much, Nico.
Thank you, Alphonse. So now we have Tomás. Give... Okay, so I did not. I pressed the wrong button. Sorry about that. So now we have Tomás. I'm gonna share his presentation. Give me 1 second. Here we are. And please, after Tomás, we have Immaculate. So please, Immaculate, get ready. And Tomás, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Thomas. I worked with Altermundi during the last month on a network capability app thanks to a program named Google Summer of Code. The context is that I worked with a teacher that I had some time ago, Juan Carrique, and he showed me the things that Altermundi do for community networks and the projects that they have for students. Then I met Nicolás Pace and Germán Ferraro, and they helped me during all the process of making a proposal and making it work. On this presentation, I'll show you the work that we did during the last month. So, let's begin with the introduction. And can you pass the... Thanks. The problem is that Android usually chooses the network that provides internet connection instead of the other one. So in some circumstances, the user can have trouble connecting to the Enemy app, which is the graphical interface that provides the configuration of the node. The Google Summer of Code is a program of Google that helps organizations to do open source projects. So with Altermundi, we present a proposal approved first by Freifunk as an umbrella corporation and then by Google. It's common among community networks that a big percentage of the users only uses, or most commonly uses, a mobile phone. And the majority of this device uses Android. If the users can connect to the Enemy app and have internet on their device, they can know what the problem on the network is or even inform them. So this was a usual problem in LibreMesh networks, and it created a lack of communication between networks administrators and those who had to make error reports, due to the inability to stay in configuration without losing the internet access. The problem is discovered late, since from the LibreMesh side, it could not be known without a relevant communication which network were having problem. With all this framework, we began an attempt to propose a solution that allows maintaining an internet connection and at the same time reporting problems that might occur in the local network, the Wi-Fi node. So now I'm going to pass to the project. Can you pass the slide? Thanks. It consists of an app that had 3 objectives during the months of the Google Summer of Code. The advantage of this is that if the device detects that the Wi-Fi doesn't provide internet, then the app can force the mobile phone to connect to the Enemy app with the Wi-Fi interface instead of mobile data. So one of the objectives of the app is to integrate with the LibreMesh operating system. This means that any user that has access to Enemy app will have the possibility to download the app directly from inside the node. And to do this, the app needs to be light. So to avoid confusions, the app needed to be designed with a graphical user interface that only had 2 or 3 screens and an easy path to the Enemy app without much interaction. So next slide, please. So with all that in mind, now we'll see the application that we developed during the last month. The logic part is really simple, but it needs to have the part of the app that do the network selection to pass all the data through Wi-Fi and not through mobile data. So the logic part consists of two parts. The first one is checking if the device has a Wi-Fi connection to a LibreMesh node, and the second one is to opening a navigator that accesses the Lime app with its features. We have here a screenshot of the app working and is connected to the Lime app. And when the user is connected, he can access all the configuration options of the node in the same way as if he had entered with any other web browser. Next slide, please. So the graphical user interface consists of a web view. That's in the case that the access was successful, or an error that shows some tips to do a correct connection if it wasn't. And here we have a screenshot that shows an error accessing the Lime app, and there is a retry button, so the user can press it when the problem is solved and try again to access the Lime app. Next slide. And that's all the presentation. Thanks to El Sarmundi for giving me this space, and it was a pleasure to join and talk with you about the work that we did during the last month. Thanks also to this great team that always helped me to work on the project. I talked before about them, but they are my mentors, Nicolás Pase and Germán Ferrero, and our great advisor, Juan Carrique. Thanks to all of you for listening, and if anyone wants to make questions about the project or the app, I'm here to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tomás. So now we have Immaculate. I think Immaculate sent me the presentation already. And after that, Tanya, please get prepared for your presentation. Give me just 1 second. I am preparing Immaculate's presentation. It has to be somewhere here. Hold on. Immaculate, here it is. And there's a video also, so give me just a second. Okay, I'm gonna show you the presentation, and then you tell me when to play the video. Okay, Immaculate, all yours.
Yes, Nico, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Lake Immaculate from Bosco, Uganda. So I'm going to talk about the solar-powered network infrastructure or technologies that we have been implementing. Next slide, Nico. So maybe after this slide, you prepare the video. It's going to be next. Yeah, so just a brief overview about Bosco, Uganda. Bosco is an acronym for Battery Operated System for Community Outreach. It started in 2007 as a pilot project in internally displaced persons camps towards the end of the 2-decade insurgency of the Lord's Resistance Army and the government of Uganda. So Bosco started its pilot by installing low solar-powered computers, and then VoIP in the internally displaced persons camps. And then over the years, we envision open and peaceful communities ready to face the challenges and opportunities of the globalized world in the 21st century. We have established over 54 ICT centers where we train and connect communities. So we are going to look at the technologies, the wireless technologies that we have been using, yes, over the years. So Nico, the video is next.
Okay, let's see how this works. Because the video has audio and I'm not sure how it will behave, but let's try this. Give me 1 second. Maybe Cosa, do I have to do something to share the audio of my computer? Okay, here it is.
Yeah, there's a checkbox or something.
Yeah.
Share audio computer.
Thank you.
No problem.
Are you hearing it?
Nope. Yes. Yes. Working.
Okay, good.
Voice.
If you share the link, maybe I can do it. Maybe your connection is like lagging.
Maybe. Hold on.
Just share the link on the chat.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry about that, Immaculate. 1 second.
I'm sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Costa.
No problem. So here we go. Oh, is it working?
Bosco Uganda uses point-to-point technology to connect our communities. This point-to-point uses equipment basically from Ubiquiti, UBNT equipment like the power beams, the nano stations, and the rockets, including the Blade M2s and Blade HP for long distances. We have also the equipment that we use, switches, and the best switch that we have ever used is the MikroTik switch. So this is our router, or the switch, the main switch that works as the gateway. This switch receives the data, okay, from this yellow cable. This yellow cable is coming from the internet service provider switch. This is the fiber cable coming out from the manhole outside. And then from our gateway, we have another PoE switch that connects the rocket M2 or the rocket M5 that transmits to the tower at Radio Maria. Yeah, we have just been at the gateway. So we have looked at how that dish or the rocket transmits data through point to point onto this tower. Now, this is what I've been calling Radio Maria Tower, and it is the one receiving from the gateway side to here. So this is like the main connection point for all our connections in Bosco, Uganda. You can see when we receive the signals from the other dish, it drops it to this switch. And once dropped onto this switch, we can now distribute to other radios onto the network, one transmitting to a pit, one transmitting to head office, where there is the Network Operations Center, and then one to the nearby ICT Center, which is Badega ICT Center. You can see from this that all this system is powered by solar power. You can see we have here two batteries. These are 200 Ah running in a 24 series. So the same switch powers all those radios that we see on the tower. About 7 radios that are connected to this one, which is gateway connecting to Raro, and then the 6 connecting to different connections, different towers from here. From Gulu to reach out to this tower owned by partners, about 4 towers that the partners have helped us to reach out to this side. And then Bosco Uganda owns about 9 towers. So this totals to 13 towers that we use to reach out for transmissions and network connectivity in the rural communities like this.
So this is second distribution point. From the tower in town we saw at an earlier point, it brings signals to this tower and then distributes to 4 other locations. One is about 90 kilometers, one is about 60, one is 40, 10 and 5 kilometers. So at this tower we have solar panel of 400 watts, and then we have solar batteries of 200 Ah connected in parallel, giving us a 12 volts. And then this is the power that is used to power these radios up, and then these 2 switches.
One of the main challenges that affects us during installation and deployment of some of the systems like this is the weather. Very hot weather, sometimes rain can find you or can get you up here. But also the roads, as you have seen, it's a challenge to get up to this hill. Without a 4-wheel drive vehicle, you cannot actually climb up to here.
The equipment that we are using are very resilient, and that makes our work easy. We don't need to be on monitoring visits each and every time. So you can end there, Costa. Thank you so much. Just to wrap up, our connections are point to point, and that means each time we have to establish a new connection, we need 2 devices or a pair of devices, which is expensive. The cheapest device that we use costs about 150 USD. That is a single one. So if we are to establish a connection within the nearby points, like 1-2 kilometers, we need 2 of them, which will go about 300 USD, which is expensive for us. So we are open to learn from the rest of the peers technologies that can be cheaper than what we are using, and then also if there are technologies they are using that can be multi-directional other than the point to point. Yes, so thank you so much, and that is it.
Thank you, Immaculate. Those were really high towers. Please use helmet when you climb towers. Okay, so now we have Tanya, and please, Jessica, prepare. We are almost done. Jessica next, then Bruno, and we are done for this part of the event. Remember that after the event, we will meet in Topia to keep discussing about these things. If any of these topics were interesting to you, you can jump in and talk with the people that were giving the talks in that space. Tanya, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Nico, for the invitation. Thank you all for sharing your knowledge with us, and also to be here listening. Now I would like to talk about Dockers. Docker is a servers. It's a software that started being developed at 2011-ish, yes, and grew so much that nowadays most of the servers, commercial servers, are using Docker to structure the applications, the service they are providing. Docker is basically a way to virtualize, simulate a computer inside of the computer, but in a light way. I don't know if you have used it before, virtual machine. Basically, a virtual machine is a software that you can install in a computer, will be in the Windows, Mac, or in Linux flavor, and you can run a computer inside of another computer. It's basically the computer imagining like a book, a completely story, and you can run a book inside another book. The problem of this is using the virtual machines, you are using too much facts. It's going to be heavy and it's going to spend a lot of energy processing from your computer. It's going to use a lot of resource. In the case for Docker, instead of having the whole book, you are going just to have some few pages. And you are going to choose how much pages you are going to use. So basically, Docker, it's a very light computer. And this computer is going to be running inside of a servers, as example. Docker have a name as container. They call it each machine as a container. And I don't know if you have seen before the ships that used to travel a lot of things around the world. And those ships, they have like big metal boxes called as containers. And Docker uses analogy to tell all the services. Each service is going to be present inside of one of those containers. And Docker also use another concept that's called Docker Composer, where basically your doc file is going to be structured about how your computer, your small computer is going to run. Which services should start, which command need to be used, the permissions of the users that's going to be there in your system. And Docker Compose, it's going to orchestrate, it's going to create kind of, a music. Music is composed by a lot of instruments, or voice, a guitar, a drum. And the Docker Composer, it's going to do like the same. It's going to connect each piece of the Docker, the services, the flavor of the Docker that you're going to use, and it's going to compose this music. And I would like to ask Nico, please, if you can share the file that I sent to you. Because this file, it's basically the structure of this music, the song the Docker is going to sing. Thank you so much, Nico. In the top of this file, there is a URL from OLAP. Is address, you find example about how to run Docker in your own computer. And this example itself is it's a way we are running Etherpad in our, as you are providing Etherpad as services, a service for the infrastructure, for the internet where we are. So like in the last week, I was able to install Docker in the Raspberry Pi, the version 3. And the Raspberry was running in a local network, was basically one router. And inside of this Raspberry, I was able to run 4 services. One as a main doorkeeper, the one that we call as a proxy. So each call, which request for this machine, this doorkeeper is going to check, yes, I have the service, or no, I don't have the service. And second, I was using WordPress, Jellyfin, and Calibri. So this is one example of the case you are desiring to provide Etherpad service. The proxy is going to need a special name that is this virtual host. Is the name you are going to call. In the case could be etherpad.mynetwork, etherpad.bubbles, or anything else. And the virtual port is the way that people don't need to add these numbers in the end of the URL. So when the request come to this small server, in my case a Raspberry, my proxy, my doorkeeper knows, yes, I do have this service, and then it's going to work. And basically in this document, you can see the service that I'm providing. It's called Etherpad. This service, it's going to use a local network that's called Nginx proxy. So basically, go to this gitlab.com Colectivo Collab Servidor Comunitário. There's some README, and if you have any doubt about how to run it, just call me. Thank you, Nico.
Thank you, Tanya. It looks like my intention to make you aware of the time it's working. Sorry for not letting you know in advance, like 1 minute before. So we do have now Jessica, and she asked me to show you some websites. So give me just 1 second.
Hola. Gracias por la invitación.
Hola, Jessy.
No pasa nada, en cualquier momento sirve. Más que nada para que las voy a mencionar en algún momento, pero puedo empezar si quieres.
Empezar nomás, dale nomás.
¿Se escucha?
Sí, puedes empezar. Y empezar.
Hola, ¿se escucha?
Sí, fuerte y claro.
Ah, bien. Bueno, ¿empiezo?
Sí, por favor.
Bueno, yo soy Jessica, miembro de Altermundi.
Wait, just a reminder that people can hit on the glove icon at the bottom of the screen and listen in the preferred language, because Gita is going to speak in Spanish. Yeah, go on, sorry. Continúa, por favor.
Bien. Soy Jessica, miembro de Altermundi y también de la red de Quintana Libre, que, bueno, ya como algunos saben, tiene más de 10 años de vida esta red. La verdad es que en toda la historia de Quintana Libre hemos tenido muchísimos cambios y muchísimos aprendizajes y muchísimas vivencias. A nivel tecnológico, contarles que iniciamos de manera bastante, no sé si precario decir, pero usábamos muchísimo lo que eran donaciones o regalos de empresas que venden tecnología, entonces nos daban aquellas cosas que quedaban en depósito. Entonces hubo un momento en el que teníamos por ahí 6 o 7 equipos diferentes Wi-Fi, y también teníamos 6 o 7 modelos diferentes de antenas, y de a poco fuimos pudiendo testear y ir teniendo preferencias sobre cuál elegir. Y en ese momento era muy difícil hacer una red verdaderamente comunitaria, de gestión comunitaria, porque obviamente era tan heterogénea la tecnología que pues era imposible poder difundir y que sea permeable el conocimiento sobre cómo mantener y mejorar la red a personas que no tenían conocimientos técnicos previos y que además se dedican a otras cosas con una disponibilidad de tiempo acotada. Entonces, como que fuimos dándonos cuenta que era preciso buscar un modelo replicable y que cada persona que pudiera aprender a, por ejemplo, mantener su nodo, su equipamiento, ese mismo conocimiento le sirviera para poder ayudar a su vecino, a su vecina, o para mantener nodos que no estaban instalados en ninguna edificación, sino por ahí en una torre, y eran como de uso colectivo. Actualmente, Quintana Libre tiene dos tecnologías. Sostiene el modelo comercial último que habíamos determinado como modelo replicable, y también tiene los libre routers, que como habrán visto en otras presentaciones, resultó ser bastante aceptado y adoptado por otras organizaciones y redes comunitarias, porque supongo que esta permeabilidad ha sido potenciada porque el libre router surgió dentro de las necesidades no solamente de Quintana Libre, sino de otras redes comunitarias que se habían inspirado en Quintana, en este proyecto de Quintana, acá en Argentina, y también de otras redes comunitarias en el mundo. Surgió como el trabajo conjunto de varias redes y de varias organizaciones que tienen su foco en tecnología. Y además está creado por personas que habitan redes comunitarias, entonces está bastante, bueno, pensado en ese contexto, ¿no? Y entonces, por un lado está como la dificultad de las redes comunitarias de poder homogeneizar su tecnología, facilitando así la colaboración entre las personas que forman parte del proyecto, pues cualquier cosa que aprenden de un equipo, pues como son todos iguales, pueden ayudar en cualquier otro punto. Y también la accesibilidad de por ahí otros equipos comerciales o reciclados o donados que le traen de repente mayor complejidad a la red. En un momento Quintana Libre era imposible de usar por la complejidad al momento de diagnóstico de problemas, porque desde el inicio ya era difícil recordar si el nodo de Sonia tenía un problema, qué equipo tenía Sonia, qué antena tenía Sonia. Entonces, bueno, ya eso ya traía una complicación, más la complicación de la conversación entre estos equipos diferentes. Y bueno, todo va a depender de los recursos, qué ruido, de los recursos que la comunidad logre para poder actualizarse. Y lo mismo pasa con el software. LibreMesh surgió de manera igual entre un trabajo conjunto entre redes comunitarias, con la priorización de las urgencias que tienen las redes comunitarias, y así continúa. Y también es importante manejar bastante, no solamente la funcionalidad del software, sino además el frontend, o sea, lo que ven las personas que van a diagnosticar y monitorear la red, pues tiene que ser entendible por la mayor cantidad de personas posibles, no solamente sus palabras, sino además la navegación de las aplicaciones de uso, y las expresiones y la gráfica que también sean accesibles a personas con poco conocimiento técnico. Y en ese sentido es que también se continúa trabajando con LibreMesh, actualizándolo y buscando que los cambios sean sutiles, y trabajando muchísimo en cómo funciona por detrás y tratando de cambiar a conciencia lo que se ve en la pantalla, pues que no sea un paso grande entre una actualización y la otra, entre una versión y la otra, siempre pensando en quiénes lo van a usar, y en nuestro caso en Altermundi tenemos muchísimo foco en que es todas las personas que participan del proyecto de red quienes tienen que tener la posibilidad de llevar adelante el mantenimiento de su red. Y bueno, solo necesitan su voluntad y su interés y su constancia. Creo que ahí van, ¿no? Las alarmitas son que ya están.
Sí, gracias, Jessy. Thank you, Jessica. It's a little abrupt, I must say, the notification, but thank you for sharing this. We are getting right to the end of the presentation. We have now Bruno, and after that, I will invite you again to join us in Topia. Let me just show you for a second my screen. To remind you about the link, we are going to paste it now. But remember that you can go to that URL and engage with all of the participants in this virtual space. So now over to you, Bruno, and then we are jumping to Topia. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna, yes, all yours, Bruno.
Okay. Actually, I sent you a PowerPoint. Did you get it? But we can use this.
Oh, okay. I will look for the PowerPoint, but
okay.
Hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Or a PDF.
And actually, this has been extremely interesting. Like we have had a few, like more than 10 people presenting. So I hope you have enjoyed the session. I have. I have the presentation here, so now I can stop filling time with my voice and sharing the screen with you all. Give me 1 second. Presenting. And here. Okay, all yours.
Okay, great. Thanks. So, sorry for taking the stage for the second time. This is also going to be fast. This is a watchdog for remote routers. The idea was to create one community that had a problem with the provider router that sometimes would freeze, and we needed to restart it, and it was in a remote place. So the idea was just to make a very simple device that when the internet was not working, would restart this device when it got frozen. We named it Caramello, which is because we see more as a stray dog or than watchdog, and that's in Brazil people always think that all stray dogs have this caramelo dulce de leche color, and that's how we nicknamed this friendly watchdog. So just we can go to the next screen. So the device is really simple. We use this ESP01 chips, which are very, very cheap microchips but that have Wi-Fi connections, and they can connect to a Wi-Fi network and do something that you program. And this is and we use a relay. That's how we write relay in Portuguese. And all you need to program the ESP01 is this programmer chip USB. You just hook it up to the USB into.
Wait, sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. This is Cosa. Sorry. Just for the Spanish interpreters, they're translating simultaneously, like two Spanish interpreters speaking at the same time. So can you please coordinate? I'm sorry. Yeah, back to you, Bruno.
Okay, no problem. So so we what we do is I connect the relay to the ESP01 chip, and the ESP01 chip is watching for the Wi-Fi connection to the internet and trying to ping Google or some other place. And if it can't ping after a few minutes, it will just switch on and off the electricity to the router, so it can be restarted really mechanically, almost like just like switching off the plug. So you can go to the next screen. So this is just to say, show how it works. All the code and the explanations in our on Colab's wiki, and you can watch it from there. So what you do to program this little chip is just put it on the programmer, connect it to your computer, and then you can please go to the next screen. So you can just download the code, this caramelo.ino, which is the same codes used in Arduinos. And if you scroll down, you cannot scroll down here, of course, but if you look at it, just like tries to find the one given Wi-Fi network, and if maybe it has a password, and you connect to it, and if it cannot reach the internet, we will start the router after a few minutes. We can go to the next screen. So this to show how this is the relay. It really works like a switch, like electricity switch. So you need to do this sacrifice to the power cord of the router. You just cut it open and peel it off. So you can connect it to the relay, and it's going to work like a on-off switch, and which is controlled by the little ESP microchip. And in the last slide, you can just see everything together. Just one more. You just need to add some power from the own battery or from the electricity outlet to the microchip and relay. And on the other side, you just use the to control the on and off of the router power source. And that's it. That's the little watchdog project. And everything's on our wiki. I'm going to publish the links on the documentation on the group. Thanks, and let's move on to the chat.
Thank you, Bruno. So we are done. That's amazing. Thank you, everyone, for staying with us. It has been quite a long journey. I appreciate the time that everyone has put, the translators, the interpreters that have made it accessible to all of you, the note-taking that will be pasted later in the forum, everyone that has presented here. And now I would like you to join me and the rest of the speakers to Topia, so we can continue the conversation about these topics. I'm just opening Topia for you to see how it is. Basically, you go to the URL that is being shared on the chat now and on the different channels and comments in the YouTube and also in the forum. And you put your name there, you go to enter, and it opens this fantastic virtual space that was created for us by a friend of ours, and that he will member Ace Volkov for us to use, and you can walk around and can talk to others when you get close to them. So just feel free to jump in and find your other people in the space. And thank you for joining.
Sorry,
and I hope
is this supposed to be streamed as well? Is this intentionally supposed to be streamed as well?
Yes, this is okay. We can see this. And now, please jump into Topia, and see you all over there. Thank you. And that will be it.
Nico, shall I stop the streaming? I cannot hear you, Nico. Okay. Shall I stop the streaming?